Joe, how's it going?
Hi, Catherine. How are you today?
Great, how are you?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Where are you coming out of?
New York City.
New York City. Right on. Yeah, my.
Yes, I was just in Blue Springs for the holidays.
Oh,
So,
were you? Okay. Are
yep,
are are you from there?
yep, that's where
Oh,
I live.
okay. Excellent. Well, we'll get into all of that. So I want to begin our conversation with surviving a pandemic. I know New York was kind
Sure.
of a different world during that time. So how did you survive the pandemic, and how has it changed you now that we're kind of coming out of it and things are opening back up?
Sure. I was actually in Kansas City for the
Oh,
pandemic.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was in Charlotte, North Carolina for 7 years, moved back to Kansas City end of 2019, and then the pandemic hit a couple months later.
Wow.
So I'm really glad. I mean, it was much more survivable in Kansas City than probably out here would have been.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, having a jazz radio show and talking to musicians that were in New York, it was like it got to a point where they couldn't even practice their instruments because it was just constant noise and just
Mhm.
everything started getting kind of crazy.
Yeah,
So, yeah. I mean, and Kansas City's so spread out. I mean, you can drive, there's parks everywhere, there's
that's right.
latitude.
Yeah,
So, um, so let's get to the heart and soul of what you do for a living. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids, third graders. It's career day. And one of them's curious and asks you, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
sure. So I have a 9 to 5 and I have a side hustle. The 9 to 5 is renewable energy. So I help big companies, islands, governments implement renewable energy projects for their infrastructure. So I help them cut down on carbon, or I help them with carbon offset, and then I help them figure out the financials behind it all as well.
Okay.
So that's my 9 to 5.
Mhm.
Last year, starting in January, I started posting content online and had rapid growth with that on LinkedIn. And based off of the growth from that, I am now starting a little side business where I help other people grow with content strategy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the one thing that's made it even plausible to drive across Kansas, and you probably know this very well, is all of those big windmills that are out there.
Hmm.
How does that play into the whole renewable world and what is that all about?
The windmills are a great way to reduce your carbon offset, but I think the biggest, the best way for your dollar to stretch is probably solar still, just because of all the incentives that go with it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, wind is great out in the Midwest. Tons
Yeah.
of places to put it, tons of wind out there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen all those. They're gigantic. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's majestic. It almost looks like you're going up on some sci-fi film when you start seeing them on the horizon and then
Yeah,
it comes
that's what it
through.
looks like.
It's
Yeah.
wild. So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
You know, that's a great question. I'm not even sure I knew what I wanted to be. I did play instruments. I played the piano. I was in orchestra, symphonic orchestra, maybe a musician
Okay.
at some point in my life. So
Okay.
great question. Can't think back that far.
Yeah, I know. I know. The Rolodex gets full, believe me. So let's go back to Blue Springs and how did these seeds get into you to be in New York and to have this sense of growth and being an entrepreneur? How did all of these things become and evolve into you now?
Well, um, I went through a pretty rough time at the end of my time in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that's why I came home just for some grounding. And I had a really, maybe they call it like the a darkness of the soul, dark night of the soul, where I came back, grounded myself, and just said, enough with kind of trying to live outside of my means and trying to be like this big shot, and just kind of come back to humble beginnings you know, Midwesterns are like the most humble. I don't know if you've lived anywhere else outside of the Midwest, but we're the most humble people
Right.
you can find.
Yeah.
And I had to get back to that. I think just growing up being that way and then kind of trying to like be a flashy version of myself wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
So came back, grounded myself, you know, had really hard, truthful talks with myself. And from there, I was able to kind of like put my life back together at the foundation.
Okay.
And then after that, I had a lot of great things happen for me and ended up in New York. And then when I moved here, just like creative calling happened in my soul. It was like I've always been a creative person, just as a musician, as an artist. And then I wasn't doing that as much anymore. So I started creating content online and it all kind of fit together and aligned.
So what do you like the best about living in New York?
Oh, everything. Um, yeah, it's so different than anywhere I've ever lived. I
Yeah.
don't have a car anymore, which is like the best thing of my life.
Yeah. Man,
Um,
I would love
yeah,
that.
it's so wonderful. And I always think like cars aren't that bad. I really don't like driving, but then like I just got a tax bill from Missouri and I don't live there anymore, so I didn't have to pay anything. And I was like, oh yeah, cars are expensive.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And we had a big, huge dust up. They did a reassessment this year and they didn't do it right. And everybody's in an uproar. So we'll see
Yeah,
what
that must
happens.
be why I got something because I haven't lived there
Yeah.
in over a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just it's so nice not to have a car. But every single thing is different here. People are different here. They're more abrasive, and I love that. I'm a little bit abrasive. And conversations are different here.
Yeah.
Perspectives different here. So I love it.
I have family. My dad was born in Brooklyn and raised in Long Island, so I have family that's up there. And yeah, I mean, I knew that immediately. There's just a whole different mindset. Everything's just it's just different, and you don't really understand it until you get into the cauldron of it. I was even telling my wife the other day that, and she was like, how can all these buildings be that compact? And how can that much be on that island? And I'm like, when you get into certain blocks during bright sunshine, it's literally dark because of the shadows off of the buildings. And you just,
Yeah.
your orientation, your compass needle's thrown off bad. So it's wild.
That's so funny you say that because my fiance is, he can always tell where north is, which is foreign to me. I don't know where anything is
Yeah.
in the country. In the city, I'm like, yeah, it's this way. We're going
Uh-huh.
south. Yeah,
Yep.
and I don't know how that happened because I can't find my way anywhere, like even in Blue Springs still.
Yeah. Yeah, like if I get into Midtown, it's like, yeah, east of Troost. I mean, I'm like right there. I lived in Midtown for a while and downtown, and my direction being in the urban core, totally. But when I get in the suburbs or I get in Kansas, I'm like, everything looks the same.
Yeah,
Everything, like, I don't know where the hell I'm at.
it's
So
not a grid anymore.
it's wild. It's everything's thrown off and scrambled.
Yeah.
So who's been a hero for you in your life?
Oh, tons of heroes. Lots from books, none, no one I've met, but who I've met. My fiance is a huge inspiration to me. He's like the most consistent and structured and just like almost militant guy I've ever met, but he's still really chill. And I actually lived with him for like a month or two during the pandemic. We had just started dating, so it was like awkward, but we lived together and he just kind of flowed through life like in a schedule. I had never done that before. I was just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna go party tonight and I'll be waking up later, the next day and I won't have all this like he just had the structure down and I was just like, that is so inspirational and so interesting that someone my age could do that so well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think a lot of that had to do with the big change I had moving back to Missouri.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, one person, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Mm. Maybe were on a podcast, maybe a podcaster like Lex Freeman,
Yeah,
Joe Rogan, just such open mindedness there. I think
yeah,
it'd be really great to pick their brain on their perspective on how they go about life.
yeah, for sure. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Best advice, just do it. Just start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, there's so much that goes into that because people will like hold their whole lives up because they're not ready. They don't have the right equipment or the right things, and it's like you just got to start. Like the first season of Seinfeld was bad,
That's
but
right.
they had to start. It's like
That's
they had to
right.
get to that point where they were iconic. Um,
Yeah.
so what's your drive? What's your drive every day to wake up, to be who you are, to evolve and to grow? What is that drive for you?
Um, I think I read a really great book a couple summers ago about like deep self-love, not self-care or like getting your nails done or anything like that, but just a really truthful look at yourself and how you're going about life. And I think honoring my future self is a huge inspiration.
Yeah.
We're not, I mean, you can't live life like YOLO, you know, you're gonna be old one day and your old self is gonna thank you for setting up everything you have now and all the you're able to do everything now, might as well do it now.
Yeah. Well, you've mentioned books quite a bit. What was the first book that you ever read that really made you think, man, I want to read more books. This is inspiring me.
I don't think it was the first book in that vein, but have you ever read anything by Yuval Harari? Yuval Noah Harari?
Uh-uh.
There's a book he wrote called Sapiens, and then another one called Homo Deus. It's a collection of history at a holistic view. It is an incredible mind shift. It's an incredible perspective on how humans have evolved since the beginning of time.
Wow.
Yeah, very inspirational.
I'll have to take a look into that. So, speaking of inspirational, what's of all of the things that you've done professionally and everything geographically and personally that you've been through, what are you the proudest of?
The proudest of, I'd say probably starting my own thing. I'm just starting it, like
Yeah.
very fresh, very new, but that's a great way to, do something for yourself and feel proud of yourself for doing, staying consistent with something.
Yeah. So, speaking of that book looking at the evolution of humanity and people, if you could get into a time machine and see one event in human history with your own eyes, where are you going? What do you want to see?
Um, Probably, I don't know if you could go back to one time and see it, but probably just the evolution of how humans became like sapiens.
Yeah.
There were so many like versions of human, so many like races of human. Um, like there are races of dog, or I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Genus and species. Yeah. That whole
Yeah,
like thing. Yes.
I would love to see how that came to be. Like, why do we have thumbs?
Yeah.
Why are we able to use them so well?
Yeah.
Because no
Yeah.
one actually knows. They have an idea, but
Right.
then to like kind of fast forward and see the procession of things.
Yeah. What you're explaining in that book reminds me of what Carl Sagan did with Cosmos, how he took and compartmentalized the history of the universe and showed where we are in it and how it all kind of became what we know of right now. And it's a huge shift. It's mind blowing. It puts so many things in perspective, you know?
I think that would be a great way to read it is start
Yeah.
with Carl Sagan and then go to Yuval Noah
Yeah.
Harari.
That would
Just
totally.
your mind would just blow.
Yeah. I may have to do that. I've been
Yeah.
getting into audiobooks and I'd love to kind of hear that and divulge that. That'd be great.
Mhm.
So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think Hmm, great question. These are all great questions.
Good.
I think that I am um, a driven person who wants to make change because you have the power to, everybody has the power to do that. And I want mine to be meaningful.
So what do you miss the most about Kansas City, and or what did you like the best about living in Kansas City?
I miss family.
Yeah.
Family's there. My sister. Um, I liked the one of the big reasons I moved home is because I used to spend most Sundays with one of my best friends in Charlotte's family. And I moved home because I missed doing that with my own family.
Yeah.
So I think I liked just being able to pop in whenever
Yeah.
and see them, have a yard for my dog to run
Yeah,
in.
sure. Absolutely. The amenities. So if anyone out there wants to learn more about what you're doing on LinkedIn or anything about your world, reach out. How can they do that?
You can reach out in the DMs on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram. Um, that's the best way to reach me.
Catherine, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. It's so good to connect with people that have some kind of, relevance with the whole Kansas City thing. So thank you for taking time out. Best of luck with everything. Have a great 2024.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Take care.